Who is Mike Mihalski and what is Sons of Liberty Gunworks? Hello again, Michael, with Iowa Firearms Coalition. We've got a special guest today. Say hello, Mike Mihalski.
How's it going, man? Thanks for having me on.
I'm glad you're here. Thank you very much. Now, tell us a little bit about Sons of Liberty Gunworks. We've heard that name. We might have even seen the acronym SOLGW, but we want to know what it is and what it's about, and we want to know more about you. So go ahead.
We're a firearms manufacturer based here in San Antonio, Texas. We're in our 10th year of business. Our emphasis is honestly on the American commercial market, the American citizen. We do a lot of work with law enforcement, do some work with DoD, do some international stuff, but ultimately we are the arsenal of the Republic.
Fantastic. I love that. Okay, so you're appealing to every person. I almost said every man, but there's so many more women involved now. I've got to get out of the habit of thinking in yesteryear that this is primarily firearm ownership is primarily a man's realm. It is so much more than that. I've got a wife, a daughter now, and I'm constantly reminded that everyone is doing this. So I need to get out of that silly habit.
It,
So
it,
I
it
like the way you
behooves
put that.
me. Yeah, no, it behooves me to understand our clientele. And I can tell you this, whatever caricature you could have drawn of a gun owner 10 years ago no longer applies at all. And I think COVID and all of the events surrounding those couple of years have blown the caricature of a gun owner out of the water. I mean, the demographics have forever changed, and I don't think they're ever going back.
I think you're right about that. I would have no reason to suspect that all kinds of people that have come to utilize and exercise their Second Amendment that'll somehow evaporate. It almost never happens like that. Most people who gravitate towards firearm respect, use, collection, ownership, whatever else, never get rid of it. I mean, it's something that they like and engage upon. Now, let's go back a little bit. You are talking about basically things that ring about patriotism and founding fathers. I mean, those are the kinds of things that popped in my mind when you rattled that off. So tell me what your advocacy looks like, because we've got a lot of people who are going to watch this that are advocates, and they know that that's who IFC is. So let us in on the secret there. What's going on?
I mean, when I'm not running a gun company, the rest of my time is spent in the 2A advocacy circle. I mean, whenever there was issues day or, in Virginia, I remember missing the first part of SHOT Show to go actually, to the Capitol there and speak there in front of, 50,000 or more, gun owners that were there to. Interestingly enough, that that rally, that event got 4 lawmakers to switch their vote, and that's what staved off an assault weapons ban in Virginia. The turnout was incredible. I've done the same in Washington State. Obviously, anytime there's an opportunity in Texas, but if I spent a lot of time promoting different organizations, the 2AF, Firearms Policy Coalition, obviously the NRA. People forget, and I remind them all the time, the NRA is still the most powerful lobbying group that the gun owners have. There's groups that bring lawsuits, there's groups that do lobbying. Understanding kind of the role of how these advocacy groups work together or work at all is something I wish more gun owners really understood.
Well, why is it important for them to understand that, Mike?
Well, because for people that may be apolitical, that don't necessarily want to, or they can't bring themselves to cast a vote for a certain politician, you can donate to groups that bring litigation, which is apolitical, right? And that lawsuit that's being brought on behalf of gun owners in your state or in your district or wherever that may be, you're still able to contribute to the fight, even if you can't bring yourself to pull that lever. So that's the way that apolitical people can get involved. And then, if you look at the NRA, what people fail to remember is that when there's a high profile incident somewhere in the country, something horribly tragic, And these lawmakers are getting a ton of pressure from their constituents, from well-intentioned soccer moms that don't understand the facts. It's an NRA lobbyist sometimes behind closed doors talking that person off the ledge, reminding them that that gun control is, and this is true. Gun control, in my opinion, has never been as politically unpopular as it is today. If you look at we talked about the demographics of gun ownership over the last few years. I don't think that gun control is in the top 10 issues of even most Democratic voters.
Mm-mm.
It's just
No,
not.
no, I think that there are many people, many politicians that would like us to think otherwise. And it's almost as if, I know this may sound a little silly, Mike, but it's almost as if those people that we stand across the line from, metaphorically, it's almost as if they want to wish it into existence or wish it and elevate it somehow. Because I'm not finding Democrats that are classic liberal friends of mine that are saying that they want any of that. I'm not running across classic liberal strangers that are saying that they want any of that. And in fact, most of them can recognize pretty quickly these are the actions are those of an individual, and the tool is irrelevant. Whether you're going to Home Depot and renting a pickup and driving over somebody, which has happened, or whether you use a firearm, it's irrelevant. It's an issue of the heart. Now, I wish that we could get to the point of that, and I wish that we could actually be honest about the nature of what brings people to do that, or what circumstances befall them that lend them that direction. But nobody seems to really want to talk about that at the moment, which is a fundamental problem.
But the truth, I mean, the truth of like the gun control advocacy is you have extremely well-funded, uh, groups that influence politicians. So the average voter is not voting for gun control, but you happen to elect somebody who is getting a ton of money from a group who does have an anti-gun agenda. And that's how this conversation is elevated and amplified. It's not coming from the people. It's coming from extremely, I mean, Michael Bloomberg may have personally more money than the entire gun industry combined. I don't think people realize how well funded the opposition is. The the biggest misconception I see from like the David Hoggs of the world are that these politicians are in the pocket of the gun lobby. I think the NRA's entire lobbying budget was like $5 million. If you go look at the lobbying budget of big pharma, of insurance companies, of defense manufacturing. I mean, if you go look at the lobbying budgets, that's in the hundreds. Energy, oil, and gas, hundreds of millions of dollars. Our power is not money. Our power is in the fact that we are a giant voting bloc. We are a giant voting bloc.
Okay, that's interesting that you say that, because a friend of mine, a colleague that I volunteer with, Dylan, he sent me a screenshot of a quick little relay, and I'm pretty sure it was you who was weighing in on the idea that there was 600,000, what was it, folks in, was it Pennsylvania or was it Texas? I don't remember which state was being discussed.
Well, let's talk about Pennsylvania, because Pennsylvania was one of those states that we could have won. Okay, and by the way, before anybody gets too crazy, when I mean we, I'm talking about not this current clown. Okay, like that's openly hostile towards gun owners and a lot of things, right? So when I say we could have won, I'm saying that Pennsylvania did not have to go the way it did. If you look at there was 515,000 licensed hunters. We can probably make a safe assumption of gun owners that did not register to vote. 515,000. Now, go look at the margin of victory in Pennsylvania, and if we would have had 5% of those voters, things could have gone a lot different. The numbers in Wisconsin are heartbreaking. The numbers in Ohio are heartbreaking. Okay, and these are people that I have to believe are like-minded folks. I have to believe that the majority of them are like-minded folks, have the same values as you and I, and they sat it out last time.
Okay, why is that? Do you have any opinion on why that is?
I believe that some people believe that elections are rigged. So what's the point? They believe that there's a futility to it. I agree that elections are not quite as up and up as we want them to be, but if the numbers are there, it's a lot harder to steal. If the numbers are there, it's a lot harder to steal. I also feel that, there's an apathy, and I know this because I spent a lot of my own personal money, not company money, personal money, to try to get issues on the ballot in California. Okay, we needed 300,000 signatures there to get issues on the ballot for guns before the gun apocalypse, and out of a state with millions of gun owners, probably damn near as many as Texas, we couldn't get 300 signatures. And I think it's because people assume that, well, necessarily get involved. Uh, Either way, whatever the reason is, uh, it we're living through it right now. We're living with the consequence of whatever that apathy is right now.
Well, it's a really tough subject if you think about it, because we're talking about issues that you and I and everybody watching is very passionate about, which I understand, and I completely can grasp that sentiment. But it's almost as if I'm letting the country down if I don't go vote. Okay. And I agree with you that there are a lot of people out there that are probably saying, I'm not sure if my vote matters that much anymore. There is obvious impropriety in voting systems, things that have happened that we can't explain, that ask too many questions. We're putting in place policies that lend themselves to fraud and cheating. So why are we doing that? And people just throw up their hands. Well, when you throw up your hands to vote, what you're really saying is I'm giving up my voice. I'm giving up on the country in some sense. And I think that that's inherently perilous for liberty. It's inherently perilous for any kind of representative republic, because that's what we are. We need to embrace the idea that if you want to be represented, you have to participate, or you should. And oh, by the way, there's a part of me. Now, granted, this isn't within the law and it isn't within the confines of what the founding fathers actually said, but I happen to believe that if you're going to give up your right to vote, or you're not going to vote, I think you cease being able to complain about it. I mean, if you're not going to vote and you're not going to participate, then I don't want to hear you squawk. I mean, is that wrong?
Well, here's a couple of things I've learned through my travels of being politically active, at least for this issue, right? I'm not, I don't weigh in on a lot of other political topics, but on this one, I do. Our side, or people I think that share our worldview and our values, we don't organize well. I mean, part of the personality type that makes us gun owners and responsible for our own individual safety, Lynn, is not necessarily the best for group mobilization. Okay, if you put your emphasis on us being a republic, where the rights of the individual are what we focus on, we don't do the hive mind thing well. The other side organizes better because they identify mostly as a democracy, which we're a representative democracy. We're in a constant. You put your emphasis on the democracy side and the numbers and the majority rule. Those people tend to organize better, and so I think that has something to do with like the paltry turnout we have. We don't organize well. The other thing too, like if you look at some of the voter irregularities of 2020, let's just say, because I mean I don't have a smoking gun evidence that ballot boxes were stuffed or something. Let's just say I personally have my own thoughts on that, but let's just say that did not happen. Okay, I'll tell you what did happen. Google searches being curated, okay, to amplify one message and de-amplify another message, news stories being suppressed, social media removing important things. This is why we lost. It's not because we're the minority. It's not because where the country is lost. It's because that group of people was mobilized to vote better than we were, and in pretty much every state that I highlighted, it should have been a landslide.
Yeah.
And honestly, I believe we are the silent majority. I believe that the values that you and I share are shared by most Americans. I think that the fringe stuff is way overrepresented in the national conversation, and clearly at the polls, simply because they're the other side spends a lot of time, money, and effort in getting these people off the couch to go vote.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I really, really do. It, we tend to make it complex. You were right earlier when you said we tend to be individually minded. We tend to be individually uh, focused, not in terms of selfishness, maybe
No,
even selflessness. But what I'm saying is, it's a little hard when we're all wanting and willing to go our own separate directions and kind of take the posture. Listen, I'm not going to tread on you. Don't tread on me. And if you need something, give me a holler. I mean, that's pretty simple. And a lot of the people that are on our side of the issue here would agree with that. So organizing principles are much tougher when you're trying to herd a bunch of cats. I get that. But if you're not willing to go vote, then you're giving it all over to Mark Zuckerberg's algorithm, Google's algorithm, and they're rat holing you, me, everybody that participates. And I do. I'm on social media. My company's on there. Certainly IFC's on there, whatever else. So we have to enter into that realm in order to be where the people are. We understand that. But we need them to go vote, because voting is how you move beyond the control of an algorithm or being categorized or herded like cattle down a certain chute, if you know what I'm saying. The other thing that we should be doing is, very few of us are riding a unicycle to the voting poll, to the polls, right?
exactly. Yeah,
Okay.
I know where you're going, brother, and I am. This is what my whole message is. Go ahead.
Okay, so since you're going in a vehicle, even if it's a motorcycle, you probably got a back seat. Let somebody ride, or whatever you want to call it back there. Let somebody go behind it. You have a car, take somebody with you, and if you got room for 3 people instead of just 2, if you're not driving the Mazda Miata and you're in a sedan, you got 2 seats in the back, maybe 3. Take people with you that are like-minded and encourage them to vote. And even if they're not like-minded, then ask them how they came to the belief structure that they did, what things happen to be true, in order to bring them to the idea of who they want to vote for or why. Not saying to try and you know derail them, but at least have the discussion so that they can have some foundation for what they're doing. I want people to believe in their vote as best they can.
Absolutely, and I can tell you this, and this is a certainty. People are so entrenched in their own camps. Okay, you're and I see a lot of my friends spend a lot of effort trying to convince somebody on the other side of this argument to change their mind. You could spend 1/10 the effort and just go talk to someone who already agrees with you and get their ass to the poll.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, if you want to make a difference, you can, yeah, okay, fine. You want to argue online for sport? Okay, that's fine. But if you really want to make a difference, go grab somebody who already agrees with your worldview, already agrees with you on this topic, and just encourage them to go vote. We all know a family member, a friend, a buddy at the hunting camp, a dude that I shoot with, fellow guys in the industry. I mean, believe it or not, fellow guys in the industry. I mean, our industry is disappointingly silent, I think, on some of these topics. I'm not, maybe to my detriment. People have told me, hey, man, don't get too involved. Well, if not me, who? Okay.
Yeah.
But if you can take one person who was going to just sit it out and you get that person to the poll, man, you've just amplified your force multiplier.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
a force multiplier. And if we do that, then we're gonna send a very strong message that we reject this nonsense. This nonsense. If you look at the stuff being proposed, I don't want to go too far down the other topics, but I mean, I think everyone can think of at least 1 or 2 positions the other side has taken that are just absurd.
Yeah.
And we can reject this in force if we just mobilize gun owners and hunters.
I agree with you. So, just as a microcosm of that, which really opened my eyes as somebody who's been involved in politics and an advocate for a long time, I had my eyes open less than a month ago. We had our Iowa primaries. I don't remember, the beginning of June. I can't remember what date it was, 6th, 4th, whatever it was. It doesn't matter. I was out of town, so my wife and I went into the courthouse and voted early. So that day, I thought, I had a sheriff's candidate. There was a 3-way primary. 3 gentlemen were running, and one of them as a Christian brother. I liked him a lot, whatever else. And I said I'd help if I could. So I thought, well, I'm vacationing, I'm out of state. Maybe I can send some text messages to friends and colleagues, whatever else, to encourage them to go vote in the primary and shape the election, right? So I did that. I think I sent out, I don't know, like maybe 180 text messages to local people. This is, central Iowa. It's a small place. There aren't a heck of a lot of population, right? And I want to say out of those 180 texts, I got several back saying I already voted early. Thank you, blah, 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 blah. But I got a staggering number, Mike. I could not believe this. I got a staggering number that said, oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, I'll go do that today. We cannot make the assumption that since our neighbor has a sign in his front yard, a political sign that advertises what he intends to do, that he's actually doing it. I think that we do assume that. I think that we need to stop assuming that the people we believe will go vote are doing that and remind them, hey, it's time to vote. We're going to go do that today. I'll give you a ride. It's kind of like we touched on earlier, but I think that we are making the assumption that a lot of people are voting that simply are not. And we can't leave those stones unturned.
Yeah, I mean, I know people that are extremely vocal about their beliefs and about their values and about the direction they want this country to go in. And then, you know, I happen to know for a fact after conversation that, they weren't able to make it. They weren't able to get off of work. They weren't. And here's the other thing that's wild to me. I have we have a very strong following of true two-way purist, and that's who my company is, and that's my own personal following. And I see some of the comments from people that that are kind of romanticizing or fantasizing, some type of armed conflict or armed, revolution. And as somebody who really purely believes in the Second Amendment, I I know that that is a very real possibility. I happen to know that that is absolutely a real thing. That's the entire point of the founders. That was their intent. That's why the 2A exists, right? But the question I ask to these folks, because what usually they respond to me whenever they're like, I'm like, hey, go vote. They're like, why don't we just bring it on? Let's just get it on. I'm like, if you can't bring yourself to go stand in line to vote, why do you think you're going to be so committed to, I don't know, living in a post-apocalyptic country?
No
Like,
kidding.
or like, if you can't bring yourself to go cast a vote, but all of a sudden you're going to muster uh the conviction to, get in a firefight with somebody, like, man, those there's a bit of a disconnect there. You can't go on your lunch break to go vote, but you're going to go live in the woods with some beanie weenies and shoot at Apache helicopters. Like, man,
Yeah.
first things first, dude. you
Yeah,
know
I agree 100%. Go vote. Let's put some emphasis on that so you don't have to stand at into your driveway with a plate carrier and a chest rig, right? You know, let's not do the hard stuff when we can do the easy stuff.
or if nothing else, the duty as a citizen of the republic
Hmm.
is to, if you're of the mindset of, that's a possibility, please exhaust every option first.
Yeah,
Let's exhaust every option first, okay?
yeah. Mr. Franklin, what kind of government did you guys set up? A republic, if you can keep it.
If you can keep it.
And people are like, well, how do you do that? What does that mean? That means go vote. Educate yourself and go vote. That's what that means.
Hey,
So,
I'm in Iowa quite a bit, up in Montezuma and in Grinnell. We do a lot of work up there with Brownells. We do a lot of work with a lot of really great places up there. Next time I'm in Iowa, I have to come find you.
are you coming up for GunCon?
We're talking about it. I have
Okay.
to look. I have to look at my schedule, but we're planning on it.
Okay, that's coming right up, and IFC is going to be part of that. We're going to have some people on the panel there. We were invited to the 2A panel. Was very pleased about that. We're going to have a bunch of volunteers there working at whatever else. Brownells is a fantastic company. In full disclosure, Pete Brownell is on our board at IFC. He's been invaluable, very good help as a leader.
That man is a true patriot, and he puts his money where his mouth is. That he is down for the cause.
Pete's a very easy guy to like, and he's a very easy person to appreciate. So he's been very helpful to us over the years. So is his dad, Frank. I mean, really great family, really great business, a lot of fantastic employees. So we're glad to hear you do that. And I was pleased to see Sons of Liberty Gunworks stuff started showing up in the Brownells catalog and online. So I was really tickled to see that. I'm glad for you, Mike. I'm glad for the prosperity of your company. I really am.
I appreciate it.
All right. Is there anything in parting we need to let people know? I really appreciate you taking the time, by the way. Thank you for today.
No, I mean you can find my company at Sons of Liberty GW on Instagram. You have to type in the whole thing because we're shadow banned. And then of course Mike Mihalski is my personal channel where I'm free to speak a little bit more open. I don't put a whole lot of these things on my company page. Some stuff when it comes to the 2A, but my personal page too. Give me and give the company a follow, and man, go vote.
Fantastic. Thank you, sir. Mike Mihalski, Sons of Liberty Gunworks, true patriot, correct mindset, and a message that we all need to know and understand, and then actually take heed and engage upon. Mike didn't come on here today because he's got copious amounts of time to waste talking to me. He came on here today. We both spent time so that you people watching will vote. So you people will take people with you so that you will engage in advocacy. That's what we want. Please do that. IFC.org, and you know how to follow us. Thank you very much.